Okay, story time. All right, so this is about avoiding a scam. The scam in question is referred to as, from what I've been able to search online, from what I can tell, the scam is referred to as the yo-yo financing, or maybe spot delivery. It probably has some other names. When I define it, you might know what I'm talking about. You might have heard of it before, but those are some terms you can search if you want to look it up on your own, and maybe how your state specifically deals with this if you have to resolve it, and hopefully this isn't something you're falling victim to. But I'm going to tell you about my story so that hopefully when you need to deal with a dealership, you don't run into this problem. You can avoid it outright. But what it is essentially is when you think you've gotten a lease deal and everything should be squared away, but the dealer ends up calling you back, and it's going to be lease or financing, but for my purposes I'm going to be saying lease throughout this video, but this is for leasing or financing, anything but just buying the car outright. You think you have a lease deal, you got the terms you wanted when you signed, the dealer calls you back saying that we need a new contract for X, Y, and Z reasons, more typically that they couldn't get the bank that they originally told you with, so you need to sign a new contract, a new bank, and you end up going in and the terms are different, and by different I mean they're higher. It's not the price you agreed upon, you're going to end up paying more. Now what's going on here is, what they're hoping for is that you've come in, again, after having a few days with the car, hopefully, from their perspective, you've fallen in love with it. That, and or you just don't want to go through the hassle of giving the car back and having to do this all over again, finding a car, especially in this market, 2022. And you just agree to the higher terms. But how is this possible in the first place? Okay, now we'll go through a story. So, I was under the impression that once I signed a lease deal and left the dealer, that was it, it was done. They're gonna take care of everything else, financing it, getting the bank involved, and then all I was doing was waiting to hear back from the bank so I could start submitting the rest of my payments to them. This isn't my first lease after all. Turns out there are some lease contracts that have a specific clause or a provision. It's gonna be the fine print, it's gonna be on the back. The one in question is referred to as the 10-day rule, if you want to look it up. But what it is a clause that allows a dealer, the lender, basically the dealer, to back out of the contract. They are the leaser's right to cancel, is how it might be labeled or referred to, or just kind of titled. It gives the dealer 10 business days to find a lender, so a bank, to take up your lease or financing contract. And if they don't within 10 days, they have a right to cancel it. So if that provision is in there and they don't find a bank to take up your contract within 10 business days, they'll call you back and you either give them back the car, think of it as a long test drive, or you just sign their new terms, which are typically going to be higher. It's unlikely they're going to get you better terms or even the same terms. Now, here's where, because it's totally legit if that provision is in there, but here's where the scam comes in. It's a scam when, say, maybe you're the one playing a little hardball at the dealer, and you finally get them to agree to the terms that you want, but maybe they're not the terms the dealer's happy with. But what happens is they'll hook you up with a bank that they know is going to reject or just not accept those terms, not accept you as a contract, as a client. They know it's going to get denied, so they know they're going to have to call you back with a different bank and different terms. And what they're hoping is, as I mentioned before, that you've just fallen in love with the vehicle on this extended test drive, and or you just don't want to go through the hassle of it again because it's an annoying process. You've already spent hours at the dealer. You don't want to do this all again. And they're hoping you just re-sign. And really, if that provision is in there and they do it within 10 business days, it's within their right. to do so. So typically they'll send you with a bank that's difficult to get to, and this is more common if you have not so great of a credit score. But here's how it happened with me. I have an excellent credit score, excellent by the definitions of what the dealers look for, but they sent me to US Bank, which is how I found out after the fact, notorious for being difficult to accept contracts for. They have very picky conditions that I just didn't meet, even though on paper I read very well, just not well enough for US Bank apparently. A little dark here, isn't it? I'm in a tunnel. Okay, here we go. But the annoying thing is, when I came in and I had these terms, I did a lot of this. I spoke to dozens and dozens of dealers, okay? It's a tough market. I was going specifically after a Wrangler 4xe, which is what I'm driving now. And I wanted the dealership to agree to my terms before I even set foot in the dealer. I didn't want to waste hours in the day just going to dealer after dealer and sitting there and doing the whole dance. I don't enjoy that part. I don't like it at all. I wanted them to agree to terms before I even set foot there. These terms I had built off of an active offer, an active lease offer at the time from Chrysler Capital, Chrysler's financing division, their bank. I modified the terms of an existing offer based on the naturally higher MSRP of the stock model that I was going after. Now, I finally got a dealer to agree to those terms over email, so I was happy to go in that day. This was early May. So they agreed to my terms over email. I go in. I'm still at the dealer for hours. They're just their whole process. They tried to change things up on me. First, they gave me the wrong terms. I was like, what the f*** are you doing? It's not what I agreed to, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. I finally got the terms I came in for, and we signed. My first mistake was allowing them to give me US Bank as a lender instead of Chrysler Capital, even though Chrysler Capital is the one I told them over email and that I built the original offer off of. But I just wanted out of there. Wore me down. I was annoyed. I wasn't thinking straight. First mistake was, you should know the bank you would be potentially be getting into bed with, especially if you did the research like I did and built an offer or spec'd out an offer in your head based on what's currently being offered. You should know who potentially could be your lender and what their contract might look like, what provisions they might have. Specifically, this 10-day rule is what I want you to look out for, and what kind of people they accept, or more importantly, who they reject, who they don't accept. I get the terms that I think I want, and I thought that was it. As I said before, I thought that was it. I signed and I left. No big deal. Now, this would have all been fine, and because that provision was in there, it was within the dealer's rights because of the contract I signed that I didn't read. I didn't read the back of it. It would have been within their rights to have requested the car back or requested that I sign a new offer had they done this within 10 business days, but that wasn't the case. What had actually happened was I got a letter from US Bank exactly 10 business days after I signed the contract explaining why they rejected, but I actually didn't get that letter in time when it was actually stamped to be sent out. I got it a little later, but I hadn't heard from the dealer until, get this, 25 days later. 25 days later. Don't know how many business days exactly it was, but more than 10. Obviously, it was 25 calendar days later that the dealer contacts me. I signed everything on May 2nd. I didn't hear from them until May 27th, telling me, and I get a phone call saying, hey, and here's where the sketchiness begins, okay? Because if this wasn't, I can't prove that this was intentionally a scam. No one's going to admit to it being a scam either. But at the very least, it was poor business and contract violation. 25 calendar days later, I get a call from my financing guy. And he said, you know, US Bank rejected you, but I was fighting, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry, I got Chrysler Capital to do it. We're just changing banks. I just need you to sign a new contract. Gotta do all this in person, right? Paper only, no digital stuff with dealers yet these days. I asked him on the phone, I said, is that all that's different? Is it just the bank that's changed, nothing else, not the terms, nothing else, and that just the bank is different, nothing else? So I missed him. He left. So he said, don't worry, it doesn't have to be there, you can sit with anybody. So when I get to the dealer finally, I sit down in their office, another financing person, and ask again, has anything changed? And they're like, no, nothing else has changed. And this was my next mistake. I did not read the new contract. I didn't read it. I was so annoyed that I had to go there in the first place. I just wanted in and out, and that's what I thought happened. I signed, and I'm out. I was in there for only a couple minutes this time. Big mistake. But I had brought the first contract with me. It was just in the car. So something didn't feel right. I thought, oh, too good to be true. That was too quick. That was too easy. I'm in the car, and I look at the old contract. Lo and behold, not only are the numbers different, higher monthly payments, but just it's an entirely different contract, different provisions and everything. Makes sense, it was a different bank, but they were vastly different. So I go back in. I said, what is this? You straight up lied to me. You said nothing was changed, and it was. And they didn't want to budge at all. They weren't helpful at all. I was there for an hour. Nobody wanted to help. They said, finally, you have to... I'm going to skip a bunch of details. They said, finally, you have to deal with the original financing person. Come back tomorrow. So you call me first thing tomorrow before I waste more time coming back here. I said, I'm not, you can't enforce this new contract. And I'm just saying this because I'm annoyed or I'm angry. I had no idea whether I was correct or not, okay? I'm just annoyed that I was lied to, misled. Next day goes by, no call. Next day, no call. It was, I think Memorial Day weekend, so I just thought maybe the banks were closed, give them the benefit of the doubt. But now we're in the new work week. I tried an entire week to contact the finance guy, to contact anybody there. Nobody was helping me. A week goes by, and finally when I hear back from somebody, it's the general manager of the dealer who straight up threatens me, lies again though, and says that I was given verbal or written notice to return the car to the dealership, and since that was more than 24 hours ago, again, not true, that I needed to bring the car back. But never was I given notice. I tried multiple times to contact somebody. Nobody would respond to me. So again, more lies, more sketchy behavior. At this point, I had gotten a lawyer involved. Myself, I had discovered this right to cancel, this provision in the original contract, and thought something's not right here. They violated this. This has to be a violation of the original contract. And the way contract law works is the original one gets upheld. If it's in violation, you can't enforce another contract beyond that. The lawyer that I consulted agreed with me. Finally, after a week later, I hear from the original financing person who calls me on the phone and I get to explain the whole situation again. He had no explanation for me, and still insisted that it was within their right to enforce the new one, or I had to bring back the car. I said, fine, if this is your final stance, you're only dealing with my lawyer from now on. He had lied, something like, he calls me back after 2 minutes saying, oh, we spoke to our lawyers and that's not the case. I'm like, sure, but okay, this is your final stance, you talk to my lawyer from now on, you're not dealing with me anymore. And I thought I had to present the case to the lawyer. This was off my hands now, I thought. 30 minutes later, I get a call back. Okay, we got the original terms met. We got the price back down. After insisting and insisting that they couldn't do it, we finally got it back down. Because then they actually spoke to their lawyers, who told them, yeah, they're in clear violation of the first contract, simply because they waited more than 10 business days to pull this on me. They were in clear violation of it, and so it wasn't my fault that the bank, let's assume they had, I'll call it good intentions, or not bad intentions. It's not my fault that they didn't hear back from the bank within 10 business days. It was their job for signing the original terms to find a lender. If they couldn't do it within 10 business days, they had that provision to fall back on. It is now on the dealer to meet the original terms, because that is what happens when you sign a contract. You have to meet those terms. You don't just, oh, I couldn't get a bank, so what now? It's on me. No, that's not how things work. But they wouldn't listen to me, even though just it was black and white that they were in violation of the contract. But again, contracts are written pretty vaguely for this explicit purpose. Lawyers have to get involved, and you need somebody to state your case. The average person can't do it. It won't be taken seriously, at least. It had to get to that level, basically. And so that's my story, told very like stream of conscious. I apologize, there's no fun narrative around here, but the moral of the story is read everything before you sign it. Check before signing a lease or a financing contract at a dealer for this 10-day rule, as I'm referring to it as, a dealer's or the leaser's, whatever it is, right to cancel. See how long they have. Not every contract will have it. The new contract that they gave me from Kaiser Capital doesn't have that provision in there, meaning had that been the contract I signed originally, those terms would have had to have been met regardless of who says what. Like, it just that was the contract, those were the terms that were going to be financed. The reason I think it was a scam or intended scam was because you can only pull it off when that provision is in the contract, and US Bank being notorious for turning down or barely accepting contracts to begin with. But the dealer f***ed up and they took too long, so their scam failed. But rather than, admit to that, they just dragged it out hoping I would cave. So anyway, because I insisted and got a lawyer involved, they caved. They were in the wrong. They caved, and it wasn't exactly the original terms met. It's $1 extra, but even before, so I'll be straight up about it, full context. The pricing difference was, let's say, roughly $40 more on this new contract they wanted to give me to. So around $2,000, probably more at the end of the full term that I've ended up paying. It wasn't about the money though. It was straight up principle. It took what I got as a really good deal, a really good lease deal on this 4xe. It would have made a really good deal, slightly less good, but still a good deal nonetheless, even if it was $40 more per month. But on pure principle, pure contract, just laws, I wasn't going to let it slip. If I had to, I would have rather paid that $2,000 out of pocket gladly for the lawyer, just to be on the right side of this and not get scammed or pushed over by freaking dealers, which everybody hates. So it didn't have to come to that, and yeah, I'm glad that I stuck to it. But so I'm warning you, read everything before you sign it. Watch out for that provision. Make sure you know which lender they're giving you, which bank's contract you're signing, and like what they look for in a client in terms of credit score and anything else they might be looking at. And yeah, don't let the dealers push you around. Read the contracts carefully. So yeah, whether it's yo-yo financing, called spot delivery, something like that, just watch out for it. And I hope this doesn't happen to you. I definitely hope never to have to deal with a dealership ever again. Hopefully the next car that I end up leasing or buying or whatever it may be is just direct to consumer. So yeah.